Welcome to this edition of Monitoring the Pulse. I am your host, as always, Arash Bakhshandehpour. Today, and for this edition, we are joined by Erin Fair. Erin is the CEO and founder of GemXD. Erin, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
As am I. For anyone that would like to do some digging, Erin has a lot of content. She's done many interviews. She has a TED Talk and TEDx out there as well. Erin, I think to kick things off, I'd love to give you the chance to share with the audience, share with me a little bit more about who you are, what GemXD does, and who GemXD is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently am in Salt Lake City, Utah, and GemXD is a system agnostic gamification platform. And that's a lot of words coming at you real soon. But basically what we do is we look at where people do their work. Is it a sales team that's maybe in HubSpot? Or is it maybe a coaching platform? Or, where are people doing their work? And how do we plug into that in order to let you make customized challenges or tournaments, anything to kind of start to incentivize and to motivate specific behavior that the company is wanting, but also making a really great experience for the employees, partaking in these events. And then just to put a little layer on top of that, we're also leveraging AI, just like everyone out there, right now, how can we make the most of it? But what we want to look at is how can we use AI to actually get into the data behind the actions that you're taking and the behaviors and patterns that you're building, and how can the AI look at that and, start to think, how can I nudge these users into, more productive patterns, or whatever that success metric is. The AI will start to do little nudges to kind of get you to that outcome that we're looking at. And the whole premise of this is, a lot of little good decisions or behaviors or actions are going to lead to really big results. So we're not looking, for giant challenges where you're going to move a mountain in one day. No, we're doing just little tiny habits, little tiny things you can do that will add up over time.
Love the idea. I've been in the workforce my entire career. I've up until recently been a W-2 employee, have seen gamification drive real results. And I think what GemXD is doing is going to drive incredible results for the businesses that you start to partner with. Before we dive deeper into GemXD, Erin, the conversation I had with you, which I loved when you shared with me, is your journey to entrepreneurship. So if you wouldn't mind, because I love the idea of a non-linear path to starting a business. And so I'd love for you, just for the audience, take a second and walk us through from point A to point Z being today, how you got here.
Absolutely. It's a very long and sordid journey. But I started off in musical theater, believe it or not, up at good old Weber State with Jim Christian. So my background, and it was very experiential learning, right? I was learning scripts. I was up there, I was singing, I was dancing, and did that for a few years, up to my mid-20s. I was a professional actress. It was great, but discovered that actors and actresses, contrary to popular belief, you just don't make that much money. You could be the star of the show and then be unemployed as soon as that show ends. And so at that point, I decided to go back to school because I discovered I liked the finer things in life, and wanted to have a good paycheck. So I went back to school. I went back to Westminster, and I did their Master's of Education program. And while I was there, it was a lot of reading and a lot of writing. And I was like, this is fine, but I just don't feel like I'm actually learning that much. Like I'm taking this information, I'm synthesizing it, I'm writing the paper, and then I'm moving on. And that just goodbye to that information. I also was a gamer at that point. I played a lot of Halo, played some World of Warcraft, some Heroes of the Storm. And I just loved the strategy of these games, and not just the strategy of playing the game, but the meta game. So if players are going to do these different actions, what do I need to do to anticipate those actions so that I'm actually ahead of them? And then if they're going to anticipate, then how do I anticipate beyond that? And so, kind of really thinking ahead in this. And I was like, man, if school was like that, I would be dominating this space. You all would be pwned. So I, started thinking about that with my thesis study. And so I did a big study on gamification of corporate training. So I designed, a bunch of trainings that were gamified, a bunch of traditional trainings, and then I went and I tested them out. And not only was the gamified training, just a funner and better experience during the training, but the retention of that material was 30% higher over several months when I came back and tested. So from there, that kind of launched me into the behavioral science, a lot of kind of behavioral psychology space, and then the gamification space. And so after that, I actually moved abroad to London, and that was great, but it was very difficult because we moved because of my husband's job. Not my job. So I didn't have a job over there. And when you move to a new country, you just don't know anybody, you don't have a network. So that was difficult, but I was able to find a job with a great company called Growth Engineering, and they had a gamified learning management system. So they had me come in and they had me work with all their clients to set up their gamified trainings, get all their content structured in a way that was going to help them leverage this big new shiny system they just bought, and they don't quite understand the gamification. They know they want it, but they don't know, how they're going to get from point A to point B. So I would do a lot of education that way, help them with their implementation. And then I also worked with the product team in order to build out these like little learning games with their authoring tool that then you could put into this LMS as well. So worked with them for a while. We then moved back to the States, and I had a couple of babies along the way and decided to kind of take a little break from like corporate world, but I still wanted to work. And so I decided a way I could do that was opening up my own consultancy. Plus, I had a lot of people kind of calling me of like, hey, I know you do gamification. We need like a full-time person, but we had like a project for this. So it worked out really well. And I stayed, very busy doing this consulting work. And it was fun because I got to work with big companies on their software. I also got to put together, small programs for different, maybe just like lower tech solutions out there. And so I just got to really see a lot of different industries and a lot of different applications for gamification. However, something that kept coming up was people would say, oh, we love these designs that you put together, but how do we actually build this? And I, would connect them with different dev shops out there or people that I knew. But I didn't have the ability to build this, system that they wanted. On multiple occasions, they said, man, we just wish you had like a platform or something you could just do our designs, you could pop it into, and then we could, be off to the races. And so I kind of like tucked that in the back of my head for a while. So I did this consulting for a while. And from that, I met up with ResNet, which is an energy solutions technology company. And so with them, I helped build out all of their gamification on their platform. And they were a startup as well. So I did a lot of stuff. I did all their marketing. I did a lot of project management, product management, and then also just kind of like operations and helping the business. I love startups. I love, having my hands on all these different cookie jars in the business. I really enjoy working
That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, so worked at ResNet for a while, and then kind of on the side, my getting into GemXD. One of my other friends, we were at a conference in like Paris, and we were out to dinner over a bottle of wine, and I was chatting about, some different ideas I had for businesses and stuff. And I told him that back in 2020, during COVID and the pandemic, I'd had this idea to build this platform that I had the initial idea from my consultancy. And I had tried during 2020 with a couple other partners, but it wasn't the right time. We weren't able to get the MVP launched. Side note, AI makes prototyping so much faster, and so we didn't have AI at that time. And so in order to build this MVP, it was going to take a lot of work, a lot of money just to validate the idea. So we had scrapped it. But I was always so sad when I thought about that because I was like, man, it was a good idea. And so anyway, I was telling now my co-founder, Alan, this sad tale about how I just really wanted to make this platform. And he was like, Erin, we can make that. Like, we can totally prototype that with AI, just you and I. We can get it off the ground and you can go test it out and validate it and see if it's a good idea or not. And I was like, we can't really, us 2 bottles in. And I was like, let's do it. And so anyway, we literally like sat in the hallway at this conference and we've got this like scratch paper and we're drawing out our wireframes of what GemXD is going to be. I've got some of these use cases in my mind and we're kind of outlining those. And anyway, so that was the beginning of GemXD, was just one night chatting with a friend and deciding, you know what, like, let's just do this thing and see what happens.
So like, again, just to run it back, it started in theater,
Yes.
made the pivot into understanding like I want a different path to income. Went back to school and prioritized, it was education, if I remember correctly, is what you
Yes.
shared. And then while you were there and you were learning, you were still gaming and realizing, man, if this is something that I could overlay, I'd be a master at school. I'd be able to retain this information so much quicker and better. And then after school is when the move occurred. And then the move happens, you have a new network. And then you get a corporate job where you're helping with the adoption and the training of these programs. Then from there, you come back to the States. Then you enter your journey in motherhood and then do some consulting there as well. And there's ideas that lapse with time. And while you're still doing the consulting, you wanted to do this idea of how do I build this platform? And then over maybe 1 or 2 bottles of wine was like the light bulb kind of moment of like, this can be done. Like the barrier of entry is lower than what it was 5.5, 6 years ago. Right.
Yes.
So again, these nonlinear journeys are so compelling, I think, to hear, because I think people get dispirited when they are evaluating their path to entrepreneurship. When in reality, it's like there's not any one way. If anything, there's an infinite amount of journeys.
Yes, absolutely. I like how you put it better. Like you got that. Yes.
So I'd like to hear now, as you went to market with GemXD last year, you were able to test the MVP. What went into going to market? What conversations did you have? Who were the people that you asked for feedback from? How did you test the product? And then now, what are you prioritizing as you go to market?
It's a lot of questions. Yes. Okay, so we just started going to market like late last year. So we are still very new. We're still testing. So we had, like I said, these use cases of how we thought it would work. And, you hear gamification and a lot of people think sales teams right off the bat, just because it's a very easy workflow to gamify. It's been done multiple times over. And so that's where we kind of started, even though my background was like in gamification of like ed tech and kind of HR tech. We just kind of thought that would be low hanging fruit to start with. So that's how we initially built it and mapped it out. But then as I started chatting with people and some of my advisors, they were like, sales is so almost oversaturated with it, that why don't you try to go find some other industries to see if maybe you can make it work there? And so that's where we'd already been building the architecture to be agnostic, but that's where we really leaned into it. So it was like, okay, as long as we can build these integrations into the systems where the work is happening, and the way that we've got it set up, it can pull the data in a very specific way, then we can make it customizable for almost anything. It just, there will be a little bit of custom dev work on it, but we were fine with that. So then I started looking at some other industries. So looking at the energy industry, because I know that, looking at coaching, just because there's a lot that could be done as far as like gamifying like personal goals out there. And I know there's a lot of apps that do it, but I think we've got kind of a different angle for it. Also looking at healthcare, specifically at like nursing homes or care centers, because there's a lot of different like checklists that have to happen, to take care of these patients. And so just kind of looking at every single industry out there and like, if we were to build for this, what would it look like? And so I've got all those different use cases that I've thought through. And then if we can find somebody to pilot it for us and give us that feedback, it really helps us to be like, ooh, this is a good one, or this is not going to work. There's been a few scenarios that we've had people ask for things that we've been like, actually, I don't think that's the direction that we want to go. And I think like as a founder, that's something I'm having to get very used to saying, is because I want to say yes to everyone. I want, I love to make people happy. I love it when people get excited and I'm like, yes, we're going to do this for you. But when you sit down and you ask for feedback, people are going to give you feedback because you've just asked them for that. And they're going to be like, okay, what can I tell her? What can I think about? And sometimes they just like make stuff up in a sense of like get these kind of harebrained ideas of like, oh, this would be so cool, or you should do that, or this. And so I think it's very important to take the feedback. But I also really like just watching people in the platform of like not asking for feedback, but just say, hey, can you open this up? And like, just kind of start playing around with it. And what would you use this for? Instead of like, do you like this or not? It's more of like, what would you use it for? So more of like the utility of it. And I feel like learning that way is good. Just because I've also worked at other companies where it was like we would listen to just one or two customers and we built some crazy features that they really wanted, but nobody else really wanted or used. And we spun our wheels a lot doing that. So I like getting feedback, but also be smart with the feedback that you're getting and how you use it.
I think that's a really astute way to do this. As I speak with founders and executives, it is really hard, especially in the early phases, to not take every ounce of feedback and implement that into product and maintain whatever your brand or product integrity is meant to be. Because it's really hard to say, number one, like you said, it's human nature. We want to satisfy and please the people that we're speaking with, especially if we're asking for their insight. But even more so, like we're trying to build a business. So
Yes.
it's really hard to not implement immediately for someone that's potentially a high intent client, but is asking you to veer off the path of what you initially intended for your business. It's really hard to have those conversations.
And that's something right now that, we just onboarded a client who does coaching. And I love her vision. And it was a little different than the way that we wanted to go. And I almost was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But then Alan was like, I think we could do it. And I think it will align with our product vision in the long term. And so, we kind of talked with her and we told her our ideas. It was a very collaborative process of like, okay, what are you going for? And what are we going for? And where's the intersection of that? And let's meet there and test it. And if we like it, then we'll go further down this path. But I think something else that I really love for us is we're able to iterate quickly. We're able to test and iterate. And I see a lot of founders who are so in love with their ideas, which I get it. I'm in love with my idea as well. But also being open to that critical feedback and to actually looking at the situation and the results and saying, maybe this other person's idea is a little better than mine, or maybe we can use some of that with it. And maybe my idea is going to morph into something else that I can't even see right now. Like I was telling one of my friends that, like when you're playing a game and the map is all covered, but you can see like your little spot. And so you like venture out a few steps and the map kind of reveals itself a little bit more, and you're trying to reveal the whole map, but it takes a long time to do that. And so I feel like that's kind of where we are right now is like we can see a little bit of our map, but we're not quite sure what direction we're going. And we are okay with that uncertainty. We're very comfortable, in this, I don't know what it's going to look like in 6 months, but we know that we're going to be building kind of what the market wants, but also trying to stay true to what we want. But we're not quite sure what that's going to look like.
It's a tightrope. It really is. Right? Like there's this idea of like you've gotten some market feedback, you've done your market research, you've connected with advisors and have a direction. And then from there, like we just talked about, you don't necessarily want to veer off the path entirely. But you also hear about businesses that maybe like stick to their guns a little longer than they should, as opposed to pivoting and iterating from the initial idea of what they took to market. So again, it is a real thin tightrope to walk.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you touched on it of how has gamification historically been used across businesses. And I come from a sales background. I've seen it adopted because to your point, it is really easy to do so in sales orgs and go-to-market orgs, right? Because the KPIs are pretty black and white. They're pretty objective.
Yeah. Yes.
And the tooling that I've seen some businesses adopt in the past are very like bonus or reward related. But GemXD has taken a slightly different approach. So I'd like you to, if you could, shed some light on how you are approaching differentiation in a market that has like systems that kind of do pieces of what you do, but haven't really built out this full gamification platform itself.
Yeah. So what in order to understand that, we have to kind of dig into a little bit of the science behind gamification because there's a lot of very bad gamification out there. And when I say bad, I mean it's hollow in the sense of it's just points and badges and leaderboards. And, you can slap some leaderboards up there, you can give a badge, great job. And it's just like, why? Why do I care? Because we have, in this day and age, we have so many things vying for our attention. And so it's like, why should I even care about this like little challenge you've put together for me? And so what I like to do is trying to do just a little education on like the core drives of motivation. And so there's a framework that I love to follow. It's called the Octalysis framework. It's by a guy named Yukai Chow. And he did a great TED Talk on it. I always talk about it on all my interviews, but you should definitely go watch this TED Talk because it's fantastic. But basically, it talks about that there are extrinsic rewards like money or bonuses or gift cards or, whatever that is. And that is good if you've got something monotonous that you just need to do, like, send 500 emails and you're going to get a $25 to Starbucks. It's very transactional. But you have to be careful with those extrinsic rewards because they sort of become baseline. Because, if I'm going to do this and you're going to give me this, I'm going to now expect that. I always tell the story of my girls doing chores because I was like, I'm going to gamify chores and I'm going to give you guys a little allowance for doing, X, Y, and Z. So anyway, then there was one day and I just needed help, like quickly getting the kitchen cleaned. We had to go somewhere and I was like, I need you guys to come do the dishes with me. And they were like, what are you going to give me, mommy? And I was like, what am I going to give you? You're part of the family, and that's what we do, and it was like this aha moment of like, I think maybe there's a better way I could be systematizing chores around the house. And so I think that's just something you have to be very careful about when you build out all of these reward systems is like, what are you now? You're setting up all of these transactions between you and your teammates. And it's like, what sort of behavior and culture are you actually building? But I do still love extrinsic rewards. There is a time and a place for them. But intrinsically speaking, for example, I like to make my home look nice. And it's not because someone's going to give me a badge or I'm going to go up a level. It's because I own my home. It's mine. I feel like it's a reflection of me. And therefore, I want to make it look nice. Right? Some people are very motivated by socializing or by the social relatedness. So like, I've told my friends or my family I'm going to do this thing, so I'm going to do it because they are relying on me. That's a very strong one. Epic meaning, I really believe in this cause, or a lot of brands will try to bake epic meaning like Nike, just do it. Right? Like that's very strong. And when I put on my Nikes and I'm going to go and do my workout, I'm like, yeah, like I always put on my little Nike shoes and I feel great doing it. I see my little swoosh. And so anyway, we have to look at these intrinsic motivators and how do we actually start to build them into the system as well. So I really like to have teams that are working on goals together instead of just a leaderboard of individuals, because just individual leaderboards can be very demotivating to some people. Some people thrive on that kind of competition, but other people, it can scare them. But if you put that team element, one, it makes it a little safer, but also you're adding in that next level where it's like, Jeff is relying on me or Susie's relying on me, so I got to get my stuff done. And it also can create, a little culture of like, hey, did you get this done? Do you need some help? Hopefully you're building up kind of that camaraderie as well. There are some core drives that, humans are driven by that we'll call them like a little more black hat, like unpredictability. Think about a slot machine, like, oh, next one, maybe this time. Loss and avoidance. So this one, Duolingo loves to use. It's like, you've got your streak, don't lose it, So my husband is learning French. He's on streak, I don't know, like 1,872 days of French. And literally almost every night at 11:45, I hear, bonjour, because he doesn't want to lose his streak. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, he's doing his Duolingo. But there's a lot of these intrinsic that can really help motivate people. And so in our platform, We, one, want to be very data driven, with these patterns. So you've put in all your data or it's collecting it from the work that you do. But then you've got all these personal dashboards that you can go in and you can see, like little heat maps or trends over time. And then the AI is saying, hey, it looks like you're most productive on Thursdays. Put your big tasks on those days. Or, hey, let's just do one more little thing today to get, your productivity up. And so it's starting to look at that data, give you little nudges, and then start to bake in some of these intrinsic core drives, like the social relatedness or some epic meaning, in order to give you a holistic gamified experience.
There's a lot there, and I love no this is strong because it's I think this speaks to you understanding the business and what it solves for and how it can solve those things for businesses. I'm just like, you see me smirking as you're talking through these things because I reflect on my career, and I bet it's similar for other people that are either watching or listening as well that have had a corporate job, which is like the standard leaderboard is something that you said, like I smirked. It's like, yeah, for some people that's very motivating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But for a lot of people it's intimidating, right?
Yes. Yep.
There's a bit of there's a bit of a lack of better words, like a shamefulness that comes along with it. Like, shoot, if I'm not in the
Yeah.
top 5 of an org of
Exactly.
25, what does that say about me? I think the idea of leveraging teams and the concept of that is so smart because it goes back to, I don't want to let my teammates down. That's a reflection of me. If it's cross-functional or cross-departmental, it's an opportunity to build larger or wider org camaraderie as well and trust.
Yep.
And then with that, you get a bit of speaking about it from the corporation's perspective, a little bit of brand loyalty as well, right?
Yeah.
I worked with Joe
Definitely.
Schmo or Jane Doe on product, or so-and-so from CX, people that I don't interact with. And, we built this strong connection as we were trying to do X, Y, and Z. This person helped with this specific part of the project. This person helped. There is something very intrinsically valuable to that. Yeah.
Yep.
So we've talked about how you went from ideation, like the journey to the idea. And then we talked about the previous few months and how you've positioned yourself in the market and the go-to-market strategy and a bit of differentiation as well in what you're specifically solving for. What I'd like to hear is, as you're looking at the next 6 to 12 months, what are, let's say, the challenges or the biggest impediments to progress that you're already anticipating or planning around?
Yes. So, probably me and every other startup founder out there, money, right? Where's the money coming from? So we are bootstrapped right now. It's just us who are building. And then, our clients, right now we've definitely got the friends and family deal going on. So getting people in there, beta testers, and, everything we make from that basically just goes into the business for hosting fees and such and paying our other developers. So, we're really deciding right now, if we want to fundraise, how we want to go about that, what we're going to do. Also, we really want to get out there because I feel like we do the best when I can go speak in person and meet with people and really help to do that education piece. Just because, like I've said multiple times, the word gamification is very polarizing. It's been around for a while, and I feel like some people have had good experiences with it and other people have had very bad experiences with it. And so when you just see something online and it's just a quick little advertisement or whatever, I don't feel like people are seeing the whole picture. And so I feel like when I can actually chat with people and understand, what are their problems they're solving for, and give them a little education on the behavioral psychology that goes into this platform and how it can help them solve those problems, I feel like, we have a much better conversion rate. And so right now we're debating, do we spend our money on online ads? Do we spend it going to in-person conferences and trying to get speaking events? Where are our marketing dollars going? Just because I feel like we've got the MVP of this product. And my co-founder, Alan, he always sends me stuff because I am such a perfectionist. I just want to make sure this platform is perfect and beautiful and wrapped up with a bow. And he's always like, Erin, if you are not embarrassed by your MVP, you've waited too long to launch. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is difficult for me to put, kind of a cupcake that I don't feel like is fully baked and decorated yet. I want to give you the perfect thing. And he's like, no, we've got to continue to iterate and build. and it's fine. And so I feel like we have a great synergy of kind of push and pull of, paying a lot of attention to those details, but also like where should we be putting our focus? Where should we be putting our dollars? How do we get the most bang for our buck? And so I feel like we're a good check and balance for each other. So yeah, over the next 6 months, one other thing is that I love that we're system agnostic. We built it that way for a reason so it could be used. However, I feel like we've almost gone too wide in a sense of like investors want to know what industry you're in. And so I'm like, I don't know, we could be in whatever industry you want us to be in. You give me a problem, I'm going to solve it for you. And that's not the answer they want. And so I feel like with this next 6 months, I would really like us to zero in on like 2 to 3 industries where we make a really big impact. And I think that will really help us to understand where we're going to be spending our money as well. And then, just finding out where we're getting this money from. Are we going to continue to bootstrap, which we've kept a very lean, mean team. We use AI really well. And I'm really grateful to Alan again for that. He's very smart in how we set up our systems and processes. And we have agents doing so many things for us on the development side that has really helped us to keep our costs low. So I think I do want to focus in on the sales because if you could have a great product and if you don't have sales, you are going nowhere. So that's a very long and non-linear answer to your question, but I feel like that's kind of just me right now.
I think nonlinear is the theme here, Erin.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to get there. We don't know how we're going to get there, but we will get there. And it's going to be an exciting journey.
Sure. You have your MapQuest printed out, you have your Google Maps, and you have your Apple Maps, and you might have a different path on each of them. But I think in the end, to your point, there's a way there. There's a few ways there. I think the sentiment you shared of like, if you're not anxious about your product by the time you take it to market, you probably waited too long. Because I imagine, like, I draw the analogy of like, let's say you're a parent, right? You have your child. And those first few weeks, maybe you don't leave the house. You're really careful. And the first time, let's say there's a family event or a Christmas event or a Thanksgiving event or holiday event, that you're going to take said baby out around everyone. And you're looking at it and you're saying, I want to dress it to the nines. I'm going to give it all the cutest clothes that I've been building up over, my favorite shoes that I picked out, everything. And then next thing you know, it's 9:30 and you didn't even leave the house and you haven't gotten to the party. Where in reality, it's like, just step outside.
Yep.
And kind of take it to market. I love it. The last piece, and I'm going to kind of put you on spot with this one, Erin, because we've covered a lot here from your background to the concept of gamification, how it has historically operated, the opportunity that presents itself for GemXD, the journey that GemXD has been on to get to this point, and kind of what the future looks like with a few different MapQuest, Google Maps, and Apple Maps paths that are ahead of you. Would love to hear from your seat. How do you want the perception of GemXD to be? What do you want the reputation of GemXD to be?
Ooh, that is a good one. I want GemXD I want it to be easy and fun to use. Like there's a lot of softwares out there and tools that I get into and it's just like, okay, here we go. Suit up. And I really want GemXD to be like, I want people to be excited to go in and look at it. I want them to be like, where am I at on this thing? And like they quickly they go in and they check where they're at on their progress and that it's very easily understandable for them to just see like a quick snapshot. They know where they are and they feel excited and motivated for the day. So as we build it, that is something we are keeping in mind is like that ease of use for the user to just get in and just have everything right there. So they have that moment of joy, that moment of delight of like, oh, I've got this. I know exactly what I'm doing.
I love it.
So yeah.
Easy and fun. I can only imagine, I couldn't count on 10 times the set of hands that I currently have, how many times there's been a tool introduced while I've been in the workforce, or a platform, or an idea. And in presentation, it sounds great, but it is not easy to use. The adoption of it is not fun to use. It oftentimes it gets buried in the sands of time. It's kind of just lost. Erin, thank you so much for this. I love hearing about your journey to entrepreneurship. Like I said, I especially love these nonlinear paths and these journeys that take sharp lefts and sharp right turns to get
Yeah.
to this point today. I love the idea of gamification and leveraging it as a platform and making it simpler across teams and across organizations. Cannot wait to see what you do over the next 6 to 12 months. And again, couldn't appreciate you more for making time for today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I loved this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.